Is The Whistle, and The Whistle was written by Benjamin Franklin. It's very important to know about the author. Who's Benjamin Franklin? He was a scientist, writer, publisher, inventor, statesman, musician, philosopher, and the founding father of the United States. He was a very famous storyteller during that period of time, and he had a long publication that were published through the years, like almost over 25 years he was publishing a series, a group of letters and stories to teach people about the qualities of good people and the values of the society. It's very important to know that Franklin had some themes to be discussed almost in all his stories. So he's always tackling the same themes, but with different ways and different stories, adding humor and integrity to his work. One of those themes that he used to discuss is illustrating and showing and examining morality, morals, what would make a moral person, what would, make a good person, a good citizen, and so on. So it's very important to know about the author. Why? Because the author is the narrator in our text, The Whistle. And he is sharing his story. So in some publications or in some pieces of written essays in which they try to analyze this, they would show that he was giving like a piece of a biography to this letter, because he's telling us about his story in it. So if we go to the part read, you can see here to Madame Brion. So from the beginning, we know who's the recipient of this letter. It's a letter. It's an informal letter. It's a friendly letter. And that was common during his period of time. Intellectual people, highly educated people, would send letters to each other discussing themes and messages for the people to understand. And in literature, I believe that you have studied before some letters where they discussed major themes and ideas before. It's very important to understand the introduction. Why? Because through the introduction, you will be able to understand the whole letter. In the beginning, he started by praising the recipient, and that's a very good way to attract the attention of the reader. So he attracted the attention of Madame Brilliant, saying that he's charmed, he's amazed by her work. What's her work? What kind of work? Description of paradise. So a description here of paradise would refer to a piece of literary work. So you might include, you might infer, you might understand that she has written or had written something related to paradise. During that period of time, people started to think of utopia and what's the perfect place and what's good and what's bad and so on, and how to implement those good qualities in citizens. So how he started is important, and it shows how educated he was. He said, I'm charmed with your description of paradise and with your plan of living there. So by this sentence, he's introducing us to the main character here, which is Madame Brion, telling us that she is also trying to explain how to live in paradise, how to be a good citizen, and so on. And I approve much of the conclusion, your conclusion. In the meantime, we should draw all the good we can from the world. So we understand here that he is saying, I agree with you about your conclusion, that we might take everything from the world. Everything good, you take it. Okay? So like in simple words, whenever you see something good in the society, you might apply it. Or it might refer to buying things that are good or obtaining things that are good. This is like a very common statement. But he's saying, I have my own opinion. Now, it's very wise if you disagree with the writer to mention first that you are agreeing on one part of his words, and then you disagree on this part and you explain why. This is exactly what he did. He said, I agree with you about your conclusion, but I have an opinion about it. What is this opinion? Is that we can draw all the good from the world. We can also take everything good, but we need not to pay too much for the whistle. Of course, when we see such a sentence, we would be confused, or we would think, what's a whistle? And this is, I believe, his thesis statement. This is what he's going to discuss or speak about. He is for sure going to speak about a whistle. But is it a real whistle, or there is a metaphor here? The whistle is representing something that he would like people to learn about. Okay? So then in the preview of this introduction, he's saying that, for it seems that most of the unhappy people, he's giving this opinion, most of the unhappy people are unhappy because they did not pay attention, or they neglected this caution. What caution? Paying too much for the whistle. Paying too much for the whistle. So from the introduction, we would know a lot about the two main characters of, let's say, this text, the informal letter, including a story. So we're introduced to Benjamin Franklin, and we're introduced to Mrs. or Madame Brilliant, and we know that both of them are the writers, famous writers, who are trying to discuss one common theme, one common moral, one common idea, which is the idea of how to live in paradise, how to plan for living a good life, how to implement good qualities in citizens. Then he's saying, of course, you ask what I mean. What do I mean by whistles? And then you love stories. Well, excuse me, I am going to tell you this story. And here we have this flashback. This flashback is telling a lot about his character. There is a twist, or there is a change that happened to this character. And when you study any character, you are supposed to analyze or discuss if there any change happening to this character. He's telling us that when he was 7 years old, on vacation, he saw a whistle with a boy, and during that time he had a lot of copper, he had a lot of money in his pocket. He went to the toy shop and he put voluntarily all the money he had for one whistle, for buying the whistle. He was so happy for having this whistle because, remember, he had seen it with somebody. Remember, you're seeing outside, you're seeing somebody enjoying something, and then you're obtaining or trying to get this thing. This is number one. He saw it with someone, a boy, who was very happy with the whistle. So he paid all his money to take the whistle because he is searching for happiness. What happened? When he went home, happily whistling all the way and even inside his house, we can see that here his brothers, sisters, and cousins were so what? They were so annoyed by the noise of the whistle. And they even laughed, you see the word laughed, at him so much for his folly, and folly like his stupidity or his lack of experience, because he did what? He did what? Yes, he had given 4 times for the worth or the value of the whistle. He could have bought it with 1/4 of the money that he had paid. So he paid so much for something which is not the real cost or the real value behind it. So here he's discussing the value of things and how we see them. What happened for him? He was so sad, he was so distressed, and he even compared how he felt before getting, and when he got the whistle, he was so happy, and now after being blamed by his brothers and sisters and cousins, he found out that what? That he was more sad than happy. This is very important for you. You need to learn from your mistakes. You need to rethink of the value of things. What happened to this man here? He changed completely. He changed completely because of this event. So in these two lines, you would find out that he said, from that time I kept thinking well about anything that I wanted to buy. If it's worth it, I would buy it. If it's not, I would save it. See how one action, how one reflection would affect our lives and would affect our decisions. You might ask, how would this contribute to a good person? It of course would contribute to a quality of a good person. Why? Because we're not supposed to just take or buy or obtain or get anything that we see with others just because we see them happy with it. We need to evaluate things. We need to rethink. We need to criticize. We need to dig deeper. Then from that time, he said, as I grew up, from that time, from 7 years old till he grew up, what did he do? He would observe everything. He would think, and he would give much time to rethink because he doesn't want to give too much for any whistle. And then he's telling us how he viewed people who had paid too much for the whistle. If you go here, you would see that after the paragraph of the flashback that happened to him when he was 7 years old, you will find that the other paragraphs are in couplets, like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This is a way to attract our attention. He's categorizing, he's grouping the people that he had seen in his life. Number one, he's giving us, example number one, the first example he's giving us is for someone who's doing what? Someone who's sacrificing his time. Someone who's giving everything because he's ambitious. Too ambitious. To hear, as he said, to attend court and to discuss liberty and values and perhaps friends, and I have to say to myself, this gives too much for his whistle. He's, in his opinion, this person who's only ambitious all the time to reach something without taking good care of other stuff is also paying too much for the whistle. He's sacrificing good stuff, okay, and only paying attention on one thing. This is group number one, those who are ambitious. Then he's giving us an example of another person. In his opinion, this person is doing what also? This person also is giving too much for the whistle. Let me explain something. Giving too much for the whistle is something called mantra. I don't know if you heard of it. Like some examples or some words or some phrases that we use that would refer to a situation or something that would teach us a lesson. And not everybody will be able to understand it unless you know the story of it. So he's telling us, don't pay too much for the whistle, don't pay too much for the whistle, don't pay too much for the whistle. By time, you as audience might use this sentence to refer to a situation. But the group of people who attended this class will understand the meaning of what does it mean, don't give too much for the whistle. So number two, back to example number two, popularity. He's saying that some people are fond of being popular and famous. They do everything to be popular and famous. And those people, in his opinion, also had paid too much for the whistle. Another group of people or another value of the people he met in his life. Someone who's miser, someone who's stingy, someone who wants to save money, who he only cares about money all the time, saving money and forgetting everything else. He's not sharing with others, he's not helping others. So this person also is a poor person, is his opinion, and he paid so much for the whistle. Then we have this man of pleasure, another person. What is he doing? He's just paying attention to his pleasure. What makes him happy? I will eat this food to make me happy. I will do this thing to make me happy. Things that are physical. things that are not sensational. He might not take care of friendship as much as taking care of something to be eaten or something to be eaten. Then we have someone else. This person who's fond of appearance. Some people are like that. They just would pay anything to get fine clothes, fine house, fine furniture. And what would happen? They might be in debt and they might be prisoned for that. Those people are also paying too much for the whistle. And then this is the girl in his opinion. There is a girl who's good, who would maybe marry someone with not good mannered. He called them ill-natured brute of a husband. And also this girl is paying too much for the whistle. So he's saying that maybe she's getting married to this person for his money and so on, although he's not going to treat her well. So that's a value. You always pick someone, or you always think of how would I be treated by this person in this idea of marriage. Okay? Then, in short, so at the end he's concluding what he understood, which is the miseries of mankind. What make people sad and not happy is that they pay too much for the whistle. Is that they don't know the value of things. The word value here is a key word. They have false estimates of the value of things. They do not value the things that are supposed to be valuable, and they have paid so much, maybe money, maybe time, maybe other stuff over others in order to achieve something that does not worth all that effort. And that would make them sad and not happy. So that's his own conclusion. Then, yet I ought to have charity for these unhappy people. He's at the end, he's saying, I am not against those people because we're human beings. He's considering that. But he's saying that we need to have wisdom. We need to learn. We need to be educated. We need to understand a lot of things. Okay? So there are certain things in the world so tempting that sometimes we are not able to, get away or just control ourselves. And then at the end, he is saying that he had learned a lesson. He had once given too much for the whistle, that he's not going to do this again. And I believe he's trying to teach us not to do that. And then he is saying, like, farewell or bye, my friend, and see you. And he's ending his letter. And that's the end of his letter. Now, this letter is one of the letters that would discuss a lot of values in the societies during that period of time. This letter has a historical background. During that period of time, people started to be educated and they wanted to educate others. They wanted to educate others about the values and about the good qualities and how to have good societies. So highly educated people during that period of time used to write those letters in order to discuss those themes. What are the themes that are discussed here? As I told you, the values, not to pay too much for the whistle, to estimate things well, to rethink of things. You do not give up things that matter for things that are just glittery or things that are owned by others. And never ever judge unless you try it. Now he judged. He thought that he would be happy in the beginning for having the whistle. And what happened? He was so sad, especially when people scolded him and were annoyed by the sounds of the whistle. So also the examples that he had given of the people who were unhappy for reasons related to not paying too much for the whistle, for not having valuable estimates of the things. And this is at the end he like concluded his own his letter, telling us that those reasons, or this reason that he was able to conclude, was the main reason behind the miseries of mankind, because one way or the other you can find connections of all the stories. And that's the end of this lesson.